shops around town, like I think it's the Dainty Butterfly. They work really closely with Wings of Hope, like directly with Wings of Hope, and so I know like what they're doing is really cool. And so any profit they get goes back to them.
Wow. So it would be kind of like a clothes drive?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, you said Dainty Butterfly?
Yeah, I think.
Partner with Wings of Hope?
Like our stuff in the song. Yeah. Main Street.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone thinking of? We don't have to have all the ideas today, but I think it's good that we're thinking about it now.
There's a new group on campus, and it's called the Red Pantry. And I'm not sure exactly like if they take donations or how that works, but it's like the whole point of it is to provide like feminine products to people that may not be able to afford them because they're expensive.
Yeah.
And so it's like making them accessible to people on campus, but also like Insta-learn. So I'm not sure if they take like donations or how that works. It's like a new thing they just started.
What'd you say they're called? Red
Pantry.
Red Pantry. Okay. That could definitely be an option. That's cool. I didn't know about that. Anything else anyone thinking of? Gosh, it's all ladies here today. Just realized, where are the guys at? Anything else? Yes?
This is like super basic compared to the rest.
No, it's good.
It's really simple. But writing, like if you have a roommate, like writing a cute little note to them, or like calling your parents, your grandparents, just like telling them how much you appreciate them, or like saying good things to them. Because I know like I don't do that stuff as often as I should.
Absolutely.
So I think it's good to be intentional about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's like a token of appreciation. That's really good. Anything else today? Okay, so what I want to do first is vote on the canned food drive, because that's more of a long-term thing. So if we kind of say okay to that, then maybe we can start designate a couple leaders. You know, Anna, for sure you kind of suggested it, and anybody else who wants to kind of take on the lead to find out more details about where we would donate logistically, and can kind of work with me too on where we would take the cans when y'all bring them to class. So whether we could find some storage here, or if we had to find a way to get it back to Ag Hall, and kind of work that stuff out. So let's vote and see if we want to do that for a long-term semester one. So for the canned food drives, everybody who wants to do it, raise your hand. Okay, I think that's a clear yes. So who wants to kind of take lead? I need at least probably, I would say 3 people right now that would be willing to, okay. And you can take the notes on it. So Anna, Megan, I'm sorry, remind me. Rachel, okay, sorry, I couldn't see. Rachel, Sarah, was your hand up? Sorry, no. Okay. So Megan, Rachel, and Anna. So what y'all can do kind of maybe right now is get together and identify the specific pantry that we'll partner with. Because even if, Red Pantry, they may take canned goods too. I don't know. And if they do, that may be a good start just because they're just getting started. And I would imagine they have some kind of relationship with not Wings of Hope, sorry. The pantry I just talked about. Daily Bread. They probably have some kind of relationship with them. It feels like a lot of those groups in Stillwater work together. So maybe identifying where the donation would go, and y'all can maybe come up with a plan and how maybe we could collect them each week. And then on my part, I'll ask around here and just find out someone if there is somewhere we could actually store them here, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And then maybe selecting a date too at the end of the semester, we maybe could all kind of socially distance come together and donate it to wherever we decide to donate it to. Okay, that sound like a plan? And then I'll check in with you guys to kind of set up a meeting so we can kind of share what each of us has found out. So as far as kind of the next step, how about we maybe do thank you notes to OSU Health Services, just because, like you said, they just have recently been slammed. And then we can, because I still want us to look into kind of clothes drive. It could be something, maybe a spring cleaning kind of thing, and we can kind of figure that.
It doesn't have to be, like, I know, Super Thrift on 6th, that, like, they do a lot of cool stuff too, as far as, like, giving back to the community. Honestly, like, this is gonna sound bad. I'm pretty much open to giving to anyone but Goodwill. So.
Yeah, no, I understand it.
Super Thrift is like the adult and teen challenge.
Yeah.
So they work to employ people who are recovering addicts and stuff like that.
Like that.
And just, give them a routine every day so that they don't relapse and they have somewhere to go after rehab. And,
That's
they
awesome.
have a job. So, like, some people might look, oh, well, you were using, so we can't give you a job because we don't trust you. But Super Thrift employs them. But also, like, Eric, the kid that sits behind me, went to Super Thrift and bought like a whole set of golf clubs for $6 one day at Super Thrift. So
No way.
Like, it's really cool what they do, and they're all just super fun. Like, if you go in there, all the guys that work there are just like super, like, they're really funny. They're great to like get along.
Wow, I'll have to
They're very
go. I love their stores.
That's also the people who do, like, the car wash behind you, the Moose Lodge. or,
Okay.
like, what was the Napa parking lot. So-
Okay.
And it's gonna be like a good car wash for less than the $15
Who
that,
are you telling?
so.
I think they may have a program set up where you can go in like every so often or something, because I've been in there once or twice, and every time I've gone in there, like, there was a lady and she came up to the counter with like a ton of stuff, and he was like, okay, you're good to go, and like he just let her take all these clothes out, and so I'm
Yeah.
not sure exactly how that works, but they're really
Okay.
good about like prices and stuff. I mean, they help to those in need rather than, just
Right.
making a profit.
Okay. Well, Devin, maybe since we kind of, I think those are two really kind of good big projects for a semester that we can maybe just kind of, are you guys good with that maybe as an additional project of just donating stuff? Maybe show of hands, everybody who's okay with that? Okay, so maybe we'll have a group of 3, 2 for this project to kind of take it over. Who wants to work with Devin on this? Julie and Sierra, okay?
I guess my only concern with this is like Devin lives 20 minutes away. I live 7 hours away, so like I don't have direct access to my closet. Like, what do you think I can, like, how can I still contribute to that part of it? Like, there is of course going to be some stuff that I can like, that I have here at college that I can give, but like, I can't necessarily go home and purge my closet super easily. So like, I'm not.
Program, right?
Yes.
Something you could do is just put it like on your like floor or whatever, and
Yep.
maybe like people
Ask
who are
for-
from Oklahoma.
Yep.
Right.
Like
Mhm.
donations for gas.
Like, I'm not trying to knock on that project because I think it's awesome, but that's just a genuine.
Or you could always just go like buy like a pack of shirts or a bag of socks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
if there's anything that like, you're like, oh, like, I'll wear this one day, but you haven't worn it yet, take that. 'Cause I wear
Right.
stuff like that.
Right. I think we all,
You don't have to wear it.
I say I have nothing to wear, but you have a closet full of clothes, so.
I feel like I could go to like Dollar General or Walmart and buy like a couple packs of underwear, and that would honestly be like so helpful. Because who donates underwear out of their closet? Like, nobody. So go buy it.
Absolutely. I think that would be a really good idea, is that kind of the lead group on that, maybe the start for that. And if you can take down their names, Sierra and Julie wanted to kind of work with you on that. So I'll kind of say Devin and Anna, y'all are the lead of these 2 projects. And if this gets too much, let me know. Like, I don't want this to become an extra job, but y'all have come up with a really good idea. So I'm kind of going to go with it since it was y'all's suggestion. But maybe come up with an idea on who, like, kind of what thrift, what?
Super thrift.
Super thrift. Okay. Maybe talking it out and seeing what that process would look like. Because even if we did the clothes drive, maybe that would be more like a 2-week project that we're collecting versus the whole semester of cans, so it doesn't become like 2 mega projects and we still have classwork to do. So maybe kind of identifying that specific donation place and what we can donate there, and then maybe I'll kind of get with you guys too, because I'll see logistically on where we could keep stuff, because that is more like clothes and things like that. So what that would look like as far as storage, and if we could even do that, and then we can kind of go from there. So I'll get with you guys probably within the next week to maybe set up a Zoom meeting or something and talk about what the next steps are, so then we can share it with the class and get it going. So maybe the first challenge, just simple challenge, is maybe to write the thank you card to OSU Health Services. And would it be something that we would just deliver to them? How are they taking stuff like that?
I think so.
Okay.
They have like a front desk in there.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm sure we could just drop them off at that front desk.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, well, just everybody just write a thank you card or thank you note and bring them to class next week, next Tuesday. That work? It's really good. I appreciate y'all thinking about it and giving some ideas. I think that'll be really good. Good thing to take away from the class outside of just hopefully the things you learn. And I'll put that up on Canvas as well as a discussion kind of reminder to write the thank you notes. So to kind of jump into class today, I just want to do a quick review just to make sure that we remember everything we talked about on Tuesday. Is that one on over there? Okay. Ooh. Okay, but before we do that, let me mention this. Just kind of the evolution of leadership research, just kind of a little tidbit. For those of you who have taken 3303 theory, you guys have kind of talked a lot about this, but just the concept of leaders are born versus leadership is learned. This is just kind of something to get you thinking about it before next week we get a little bit into the perspectives when y'all read chapter 2 and kind of how people see leaders, what roles people have in order for someone to see someone as a leader. So the idea of leaders being born versus leaders being able to be taught is something that it's not really a right or wrong answer to. I mean, research has debated this for years and years and years. So just kind of want you to think about that as we go into next week's chapter. So that's just kind of a quick intro of thought. But back to kind of what we're focusing on today as far as review is drift. We talked about that on Tuesday. What is drift?
When you're feeling like overwhelmed, under challenged, kind of lost, like you don't feel like you're moving or anything like that, you're just kind of stuck.
Right. When you're kind of on your leadership journey and you don't really know the next steps, maybe aren't as confident in your abilities, you're questioning yourself, really trying to figure out what is next. What are the top causes of that? You kind of mentioned that being overwhelmed. What are some additional causes that could shift someone into drift, Julie?
Being skeptical of like the program that you're with, or even like your company and stuff.
Yes, for sure. What else?
Being generally unhappy with where you're at.
Yes, being miserable at your job, being skeptical of the direction of your job.
Being overwhelmed
Yes.
and not having like either enough or like having too much pressure on you to do something specifically.
Right. Right. Feeling overwhelmed, maybe you've gotten a new responsibility, maybe you were thrown into a leadership role. Remember we talked about that? Leaders sometimes fall into it, not necessarily they choose it.
When I went back and like read the chapter and stuff just after the class, I thought an interesting one that was brought up was being thrilled. Like you didn't think about like, you were so happy like this is like your dream job or whatever. and you didn't think about, am I actually the best leader for this position?
Yes.
And like that kind of thing. Like you were just so happy to have it. You didn't fully process what it meant to be
Right.
the leader of that.
Right. So being thrilled, Julie mentioned being thrilled and getting super excited about a position, then you get it, you're like, oh crap, I don't know if I can handle this. Kind of like that imposter syndrome that everybody talks about. Like you start to question, like, I really wanted this. I thought I could do this, but am I really capable of doing it? For sure, can definitely shift you into drift. Okay. Clarity. So you're in drift. You feel lost, you feel overwhelmed, you don't really know which way to go. But clarity is where you want to get. You don't want to stay in drift too long. It's a little risky, it's dangerous. So you want to get to clarity. What is that place of clarity you want to get to?
I feel like clarity is kind of when you're at like your best as far as like being a leader. It's kind of where you can take a step back from the situation and see from all angles what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You get that clarity, you kind of build that vision, you know what step, you make the conscious effort to make specific decisions to get to your overall goal, obtain your vision.
I think the book said like being in the zone.
Yes. Yes. Elaborate in the zone. What does that look like when you're in the zone?
To me, it's just like you're like focused, like you know exactly what you need to do and like to get to your vision. Like you have goals to get there. So.
For sure. Just like the word says, like I said, some of this is just kind of like once you put it together, like it makes sense. Clarity. You see things clearly, you have focus, and you know what to do next. And you know why you're doing it. You have your why behind it. Like we talked about with vision and values, right? What did we talk about in class on what makes a good leader? What did we say here in class makes a good leader? Said something very specific that I wanted you guys to remember for this class on what makes someone a good leader. Yes, Rachel.
Someone who others are willing to follow.
Yes, someone others willingly follow. That is what makes a good leader. The top 4 characteristics of admired leaders. Yes.
Confident, forward-thinking, honest, and inspiring.
Okay, so honest, inspiring, competent. Okay, I thought you said confident. Sorry. I was like, I don't know about that. And forward-looking. Yes. And honest was the top trait that they want to see in that leader. And remember, it's not just a U.S. thing. It was a global thing. And this has been consistently found for years and years and years. This framework, you guys looked at this a little bit for your first worksheet. You want to get familiar with the components of the framework. You want to know this for the exam. You don't have to necessarily be able to describe every element of it because this is what we're working through in the book. As you see how the chapters are set up, we spend time on values. We spend time on vision and profile and organizational realities and all those things. So you don't need to be able to define all of it, but you should be able to know what components make up the leadership framework. So again, this PowerPoint is going to be up on Canvas, but you want to make sure you're familiar with this framework for the exam, okay? We'll talk about that at the end of class. So for class today, are there any questions before we move on to the activity? For class today, do you have any questions on what we have covered, what we reviewed so far? Any additional thoughts? Okay. Well, so for class today, we're going to do a peer leadership assessment and leadership framework kind of interview. So it's going to talk about some of these components that we discussed with clarity, drift. What do you see yourself as far as, do you see yourself as a leader? What role are you in? Those sorts of things. So what I want you guys to do is pair off. I'm going to pen this out and we're just going to kind of review it together because you're going to interview each other for about 10 minutes. Oh, my bad, Aaron. Right, sorry. Here you go. Mm-hmm. There you go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gosh. Man, you'd think my hands, you know. I've never been a finger licker of the passing out, but I know that's like banned now.
If you rub them out, if you rub your fingers together long enough, you get a little bit of like.
Oh, moisture. You're right. Yeah, because my hands are always like very dry. Like not, they just, I haven't had the moisture there, I guess. But, so you guys will read through this. You'll have 10 minutes to interview your classmate, and then we'll flip, and I'll give you 10 minutes to kind of interview the other classmate. So go through these questions, and you write some notes from your interview here on this worksheet. So you write your name at the top, and then you write the person you interviewed to, so I know who you interviewed. And then you ask the question, do you see yourself as a leader? How do you define leadership? All those sorts of things. It doesn't have to be super long and heavy, but you want to make sure you get through these questions. There are questions on the back, as you will see. So I'll give you guys about 10 minutes, maybe a little less than 10 minutes, spend a little more time talking about the challenge, which is good, but we want to make sure we get time for this. So I'll give you around 10 minutes to interview, and then I'll say switch, and that's when you'll interview the other way, kind of flip it. Then after that, we'll break off in groups, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the interviews and do a quick little class presentation on it and apply it to course concepts, okay? So you guys go ahead, pair off. And if there is a group of 3, that's cool, but it shouldn't be any more than a group of 3. I'm not sure if we have an odd number. Here it goes. And for you guys, when I say switch, like y'all can y'all can do it maybe where I'll try to make a separate timer for y'all. Y'all just go maybe a little quicker, or maybe you guys can kind of pair together and interview. You remind me your name?
Macy.
Macy. Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
you're
sorry.
fine.
I'm trying. You guys can, Abby and Sierra, pair off, interview Macy, and then Macy, you can interview Sierra.
Okay.
That works. Just to break it off, because we're going to talk about it as a class anyway. Okay. So just because I want to make sure y'all all have an opportunity to answer each question. Okay.
Being really good thing in like through high school, and then once you get to college, they're like, oh, like I want to stand up a leader. And some people don't get on with it.
Current organizational context and maturity. I think that that's true. Like leadership, current organizational context, expectation demands, leadership I think we're all experiencing it. Yeah. How would you describe
It's inevitable.
Describe my leadership.
Describe it as organizational context.
What value does identity action in the context? As president, my role
I have you guys did what a first grader, like a coordination planning, so that would be kind of my leadership context versus if and we'll talk about secretary. Right, today. Yeah. Well, that's scary.
That's just like we're generally like here with this, and I know it's wrong. Yeah, like I just think about like my parents or my grandparents, like being that person asking me and I can't say yes. Like it's just like we're guilty. And I try to be positive a lot. Even if it's bad that happening, it'll be okay. What do you typically play in this situation? I usually like try to play like the leader, like being a leader. I don't know, I'm like the balance between brothers, like leader, sorry, I kind of figured out. Like trying to figure out how to like graduate. Yeah.
Okay, so what are your execution strengths? Like a
Definitely that we're trying to go hand in hand.
Top three values guide your
Like, okay, what's top three values guide your daily actions?
Organization, I guess. Strength. And my last name is that's literally just and then weaknesses.
What role do you typically play in your
I'm bad at like outgoing, like jumping right into leadership roles. Like
What do you identify? I'm a type A, so how do you identify
when I get told no, like I know that's not possible.
Okay, I'll give you guys about 3 more minutes.
My personal life.
How did your personal life impact your
I guess like
your leadership impact your approach? I feel like that goes on like what you said. No, twins run and yeah, and I just think it's so. How did your personal life and leadership impact your really? Yeah, that's what like my grandparents. They both like on their side of the
You made a face.
push me to be a better person.
Context. I would say like for instance, you're in English CFLK. So like what are some of the citations? I feel like I'm kind of like you. Like
Fun, like being a part, like being there, but like being there mentally too. So you can always be somewhere outside of the organization. Like the
So, you know, like the alumni association? Actually, so we work with a lot of them. We're like, the
thing at the
Because I don't want to write up my audio. Sometimes I like to take it off. Like not like teaching, but walking around kind of.
no, I want to sit here. I want to teach you.
Yeah, because I think out loud. Okay, I don't want to sound crazy. So like I was watching too. I think it's I'm trying to learn things. Yeah, I forget that I got mic'd up for hot fire.
Sometimes, like, you know, I was intimidated to, like, because I had to film myself when I was teaching a lot, and I would do, like, really my academic tricks.
Okay, you guys, flip it. Flip now. Interview the other person.
As a leader, explain.
That's okay. Just wait. Maybe okay, just so you guys can get questions when we do the presentation. You have to like So yeah, if you did not get all the way through your interview questions, work backwards on the reverse interview when you interview the other person, just so you can make sure when we break off into groups, you collectively have answered all the questions.
Because I don't think anyone expects to go into a job.
I guess I would say that.
So, okay.
Sorry, you said you had to record yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like, as instead of having someone come in and, like, do my observations, I had to do an observation of swivel every single month, and I would do, like, freshman exercise. And I would, like, tell them the day before, like, see what I should do, like, hey guys, we're gonna be filming, so, like, one, behave, two, you know, just so you know, like, it kind of happens every single time, because they're 14, they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I weren't there. I'm like, it doesn't matter, they're not looking at you.
I know, right?
They do not care about you.
I'm kidding.
You think that old professor is like, well, it's Dr. Strickland, but like, you think he cares? He does not care. He doesn't know who you
You're
are.
not the first makeup-less teen. You've seen it on his years. I don't think that's a big deal for you.
Yeah, no one cares. But they would get so concerned about it. The whole time, my whole thing is like, ignore the swivel. And after the first couple of times, it was fine, but especially for my NTPA, that was like a really big thing. Was like, don't look at the swivel, like, or acknowledge it in any way, shape, or form. Which NTPA in Tennessee is like trying to get licensed and everything. Like, there's a lot riding on it. It's like a really big deal, and it's really hard. And I'm just like, please do not look at the swivel, do not acknowledge the swivel. Don't even, it doesn't exist. And like so many times there be people like, hey, Mr. Roberts, the swivel's moving, and I'm like, I know, it follows me. Like, been over this like so many times. And it's like, especially with NTPA, I would be like, okay guys, we're doing NTPA, like, time. Like, don't look at it. But of course, like, I'd go back and look at my footage, and there'd be like a kid, there was like one kid, and he hated me, so it's fine. But like, he'd always just like look right into it, and I'm like, why would you do that? I can't use it when you're looking at it.
It's so different. You know, I've never seen a swivel until I came back to school this time around. Because, I mean, when I was in high school, that definitely wasn't going on. And undergrad, it wasn't. Even when I was here in grad school, I never saw anybody use a swivel like in 2012. So I don't know when swivel and stuff came out, but in the classes I was taking here at OSU, I don't remember them ever using it. So when I came back here this time around, I'm like, wow, like, this is pretty nice, and it was just kind of incorporated into all the classes that we taught.
Yeah, no, I never saw one of these in a class, like a college class. We only use them, like, we started using them early in my education, like my ag ed courses, just so we could get used to it, because we'd have to do it for NTPA, because it's literally like, I don't know, I have so many opinions about it, because I hate it so much, but it's like a standardized test of, getting licensed, so like, it's basically prepping you for it, like, that's like the whole program is just getting you to do your NTPA, basically. So, of course, we knew about like the swivels early, because we were already using them, but like, a lot of people didn't. So gross.
It's always like, you sneeze in your mask. I understand. I have some. Here. Yeah, no problem. I like keep everything in this thing now. Here, if you need some more, let me know. No problem.
Yeah, my school's really interesting.
I wish I had stock. Oh my gosh, I'm sure every university is purchasing it now.
Well, and it's also interesting, like, which professors are like, not going to use it, and which ones are. Like, I had a class with Keisto last semester.
You guys have about 5 more minutes.
I had a class with Keisto last semester, and he refused to use the swivel. He's like, we're going on Zoom. It's not going to be in person, so I don't want to use a swivel. And I'm like, I mean, like, you can make that call, but just like, I don't know, it's so interesting.
It's almost like, kind of like your tech change, like a doctor, like, lagger. Yeah, like, we're seeing a lot of that, and I think it's a lot of people being pushed into technology now because you don't have a lot of options, because it's like, okay, you can't meet in person, or you're just not going to teach at all, so now you do have to record your lecture, you have to Zoom, you got to meet online, it's a lot of things that have, I think, pushed people a little further out of their comfort zone with technology than maybe they would.
And it's like, keeping in mind, like, this is your job, people are paying you to do it, so you have to kind of figure it out, like, and we talked a little bit about it, how crisis, like, really pushes people to change a lot quicker, and, like, become adopters a lot quicker.
Oh, yes.
You kind of have to.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. Like, even, like, I remember, I found out about Walmart pickup, like, last spring, or last fall, and I never used it, and then I, like, kind of started using it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is life-changing, like, this is amazing, because I would get so frustrated, and I would complain to Drew all the time, like, I spend 2 or 3 hours at Walmart, grocery shopping, like, that just eats up so much time, so I started doing that, and it was great, and then, like, the COVID hit, and then I was backed up for a whole week before I could use it, because everybody was using it, and it was like,
in Knoxville, they like shut everything. Like, you could only go to the grocery store between like certain hours. It was so shut down. So we were trying to figure out like how do we get. It was kind of scary. I mean, like agriculture, like so important to have where you're at, because like we were living in like Knoxville, and it was like you can't get food anywhere.
Yeah, I think people grew and had a little bit more appreciation for agriculture. Even when they were talking about the supply chain, it's a lot. It's a lot that people, and I think that's what any industry almost, like, you don't think about it unless you're immersed in it until it's taken away. And then you're like, oh man, that's important. I need that. I need to know more about that. This thing has really exposed people to a lot of different kind of survival tactics. Like with tissue, I read an article on that. They were like, why did everybody buy tissue? Like, it was an article from some psychologist that wrote about this mentally, why everybody freaked out about the tissue. And I can't remember the key exactly, like, I felt like it was just something like people felt like they identified with or close with, so that was something. Or safe. It seemed like it was something that people just connected with, that idea to have tissue, and then it just took off a little bit more like that.
And it's funny because you really don't need it. Like, you can very easily live without it.
Yeah, because all I was thinking, I was like, gosh, you're just gonna didn't get that bad, but maybe the plumbing systems will all mess up. We won't even need tissue because we can't even use, regular plumbing. So I was like, that was kind of what I was thinking about. I don't know. Okay, you guys have about a minute so you can start wrapping up.
I was thinking extension, we could take advantage of all this and do gardening classes and painting classes.
Yeah, everybody got our sign up. We wish that they had all our grandmas too. I think Chris quote was wrong, and that's what I would, you know what I mean? Like, what else would it be? Okay, you didn't do a lot of stuff, so I didn't know if you
I don't know what that's going to apply to. I feel like I'm so interesting. That's we are going
Yeah. Like what? You probably know. Yeah, I probably know. I know you're not great. Thank you. Good grade.
He was like there until 4 a.m. Monday was an interesting night. Monday was fine. Monday was I think
Let's see, you look so familiar.
okay, you were a virtual assistant.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say, I feel like you were so much older than a freshman.
She's a baby freshman too. She was like 19.
I know. You know, it's not last.
I knew you. I knew you were virtual. You never know me. No, whatever you look at her, I was like, oh.
Okay, y'all. So what y'all to do is break off into groups. So I will probably break you guys off into a group. Let me see, how are we doing on time? Actually, put you in this group too. We're gonna have a little bit of a larger group, but we've been talking, we're friends, so we can make this more of a conversation and presentation. And then you guys are a group. Okay, so our group, so we'll make it like, I'm taking okay, so I'm going to kind of talk through this small group presentation sheet. So you guys are going to have around 20 minutes. So you're cutting close on class, so I may shorten it a bit, but around 20 minutes to kind of do a presentation on what you guys just did in your pairs. So this is kind of the outline for the presentation and what I'm wanting to kind of hear from you. Obviously, it's just going to be you guys discussing it. It's on a PowerPoint and all that good stuff. So the opening part of the presentation, I want you guys to identify key points from your interviews that you would like to share from the class. So you guys, as a group, just kind of talk about some key points you all talked about in pairs and that you think would be worth mentioning. And then examples include: who did you interview? Did they consider themselves a leader? What percentage of their lives are about leadership? That sort of thing. And then these are kind of another points on examples of key points, is be sure to share common themes and different viewpoints. So a lot of you said, well, a lot of the leadership roles seem to be on campus or in their jobs. There, a lot of managers in our group say those common things. But if you see someone who has a completely different perspective, saying like, you know, I feel like I'm a leader to, I have 7 siblings, and I'm a leader to all of them, maybe highlight that point since it is a little bit of a different viewpoint, okay? So then, key concepts. Identify 3 key concepts from chapter 1 and how the concepts apply to all, some, or only of your interviews. So with that, it's just like drift, clarity, kind of seeing yourself as a leader. Let's focus on drift and clarity because we're short on time. So drift and clarity, highlight those concepts. So we did a quick review so we know the other elements. Then closing. In your presentation with the most important lesson we can learn from chapter 1 and the interview activity. Share specifics from the interviews and how they directly relate to chapter 1. So just that big, kind of like we talked about in the essay 1 that you guys would do, the what I learned, this is kind of a mimic of that. You guys talk about the key takeaways from this interview, what you learned from this, but then also tied into chapter 1, what we've talked about, how you brought that up, and just another element of drift to kind of be aware of. So talk about that key element and maybe how it applies to your interview. And then we'll try to see if we have some Q&A time to discuss that. So the primary thing, you want to do your opening summary of the interviews, and that's just in identifying those key points, talking about some of the common themes you heard when you guys share the different experiences you learned about during your interviews, and then talk about those kind of different point of views. And get the key concepts. We're going to focus on drift and clarity, talk about drift and clarity that was tied into your interview, and then closing the big takeaway from this interview activity as well as chapter 1. Any questions? Okay. I'm going to get, and this is really informal, y'all. This is just for us to kind of, you guys to apply what we talked about in class. So I'm going to give you guys probably about 10, 12 minutes to kind of get it together, and then we'll come together as a class and present, okay? Okay.
How about splitting, maybe like 2 people, like your concepts and
I expected also about the different talent. It was good. I didn't expect, because last year I didn't have the deep buy-in, you know, like, it was kind of okay, you know, we'll do something, so I thought about certain stuff, I was like, okay, well, maybe I could talk about it before, and I was expecting the university to come too, I'm like, you're going to start talking about this, and I'm like, I feel like this.
I know, I'm really surprised.
Drift is another most active like things, but I would like each have to figure out like
I like it.
how to get
Our teacher was like, yeah, you don't give them a choice. You just do something if you want to do it. I'm like, okay, yeah. Fair. I probably shouldn't put my classroom in the hands of 15-year-olds. Which, I mean, they're obviously older, but it's so funny.
And it's true, because it's like, you know, I think, when I kind of thought of this idea, I'm like, I don't want it to be, I don't know, more of a heavy movie, and it is a like, because it's like, the still is a class, okay? Like, you want to do something with the still is a class. But what I found is like, sometimes, you know, like, just kind of talk about this in like concepts, like, if they think of it, sometimes
They're more likely to do it.
you know, because I mean, teachers young, and like, really
Nobody did it.
so I was like, okay, well, maybe we can do something like that. That she had emailed me.
Yeah.
And then to kind of hear like others, which I wasn't really expecting, I was like, okay, this is good. But now that we've had this kind of big discussion, and now kind of doing it this way, maybe it's something I would do first. Whereas maybe like something that's like concept based. So maybe hey, everyone will be even Tuesday we have that time like we did today to kind of iron out what we do. And then it doesn't eat into the start getting to the bulk of concept. But I was just looking at last semester, I'm like, we learned like 5 minutes. It was been a lot of time. So it is so weird. I'm excited to kind of see what they do, especially when you're taking classes for freshmen.
Because I've been some like logistics behind this. I wonder if like with the Good Drive or something, it'd be easier to donate every week instead of like holding it or like.
Well, like what they do about
then she asked, like, is there a drop on there? You talk about all the time, like, really good time not to do that, like, sitting in class. Yeah, and I'm like, that would make sense. I choose it, it's gonna be great for Dr. Carey.
So did you have your students ask it?
Yes, I have been somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I'm not reading episode 3, and I'm like, I don't want it to be like, oh, focus on here now. You know, just, you want it to be as easy as possible. So, I'm like, maybe we can get a bid, then, try to, like, maybe each week, a student will come and help and make sure we transfer the different sets. It's like, hey, look, there's only 2 of us in that frame. I just didn't want to get that now. 4 people often. So I'm like, if it can be neatly done, maybe, with boxes or something, maybe there, or if he has an extra storage space where we can transfer it in, I'm not into that, so that it's been outside always remains open ended. Like, you have other people that are do that, and then if it does become like, okay, we have then we can break our donation. Like, okay, we have too much stuff to where we will have to have a dump truck to take it all in there. So how about we, you know, break it up? Because I do like it to be where the students can kind of be involved with all of our you know, so that's when I'm going to reach out to Dr. Henry and kind of see what he thinks about it and all of it. Go from there,
I know, it's really good.
This is exciting. I'm like, we could do this every semester. Like, for sure. I love teaching. I'm like, this is like that. If you would have asked me this a year ago, I would have been like, I don't know. Or even 2 years ago, I just always said, I want to teach, but I don't know how I feel about it. But like, teaching is fun. It's like, it's comfortable. But this kind of stuff I really enjoy. Like, how can we create such an excitement? And I think it does apply to, like, you know, some of the concepts. We talked about servant leadership and stuff like that. So it's not too far off, but I don't know. I just think it's so easy for us to get wrapped up in complaining about, like, how crappy the world is and how crappy life is. It's like, okay, well, let's take some accountability. Let's not make it so crappy.
Yeah, well, I think a big part of leadership is being a community member versus being a community member.
For sure. And I gotta know a little bit more about Stillwater. I mean, I don't live here anymore, but, you know, more like the organization, they're opening my eyes to places and things that I think is important. So, yeah, I'm glad, but I know now on your class prep on how this could go, so helps. And like, we'll give you guys a little 5 more minutes. Try to keep working it out.
I hope this doesn't become a trend, because that in Dr. Klein's class last semester, that became a trend. It was like only like,
I think of the clarity, like once we
7 finals with all the time.
and we're just very good. How someone explains clarity to me, I think of enough time to talk to
That's something maybe we'll talk about.
like when your car is frosted over and you put the
Like,
lid on it or
what
whatever.
will need to be addressed.
And right whenever it starts to like defrost, it doesn't take long.
Things come up, but some
like once
students
you get a little
have
bit of clarity, like it helps you see the whole like
class because next week we're in.
So I think that's something in leadership, like once you feel confident, like a little bit of confidence in a leader can go so big in the leader, like to see the whole picture, whereas you have frost over your eyes before. So that's something that I've taken with me, and I think it's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah, because I can see how long people, you can too, how long people have been on there,
How
so.
often they're like, Candace actually gives like, people like a rating, or like, it's like 3 stars.
Do they really?
This student is a 3-star student, they've spent a lot of time on the Canvas side of this.
That is so funny.
This person's like a 1-star.
It's like, does Dr. Edwards do that? Know that? Because I know, I don't know if he's done it yet in y'all's class, but he did that. He made it happen during class where he would like pull up the people and show how long people have been on campus.
Oh my gosh. I've not been on that class, that class very much.
And he's
Because he hands things out, so I don't really need to.
yeah, he talks about it. It's so funny.
Oh gosh.
He talks about it in I'm like, if he gets a hold of the star rating, what thinks he's good. It is all in good fun, you know what I mean? But it just was really funny when he started. He'd be like, where are you at? Wait, where have you been?
I've been reading this day 10,000
It's so intimidating. And I do that. Like, he's such an intimidating, like, not like he is a person, but just like his content is so like in his step.
And he's, you know, you think of like graduate level thinking, he's that in the class, you know what I mean? Like he does push you there, but what I can say and I respect so much about him is that he's fair. You know what I mean? Like he sets it up and says, I'm gonna require a lot of you. And you're gonna put in the time or it's gonna show that you're gonna put in the time. But he's very fair and like if you have a question or you're not sure of what you need to do, or he gives like super thorough feedback, especially on your first assignment, to where from my experience, it's like I can deal with a tough professor as long as like I have the clarity to be successful. And I know you've probably been in those classes where it's a tough class and the professor gives no clarity or direction, and you're just like, how do I succeed? I'm confused and I don't even know how to like be successful. But like he does never know. Like he's very thorough. So I get it because I mean there's handouts every day and there's reading requirements every day.
And the reading is a lot. And like, I don't know, I'm the kind of person I have a really hard time like forcing myself into reading. I'm gonna have like this drive. I don't really
and like that's not something like my leisure time.
No, I don't read. I don't read for fun.
I don't either. I'm more like YouTube video or a video or something audio. Like that's more my interest. Reading has never, and that's why when I talk to my son and he hates it, and I'm like, I get it, okay?
Like I understand.
Trust me.
At the same time, you have to.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm living it right now. I have so much to read, but I don't want to. And I have to literally, like you said, force myself to read. And it's just like, oh, it can be a pain.
That book is long.
Oh yeah, and it's big. No pictures really.
I have it on Kindle, so. But it's like you're on page like 888 out of 10,000.
Seriously. Hey, y'all ready? Y'all ready to talk about, do your little presentation? Okay, what we'll do is I'll give you guys around 5 minutes time set on here to kind of talk through it. Like I said, I'm not looking for a seamless presentation. I'm just looking that we kind of talk through the concepts and everything. Okay. So then I'll give each of you 5 minutes and then we'll kind of discuss, you know, a little bit from each interview, okay? Oh, let me turn the music off. Yeah. Okay. I will let you guys go first, and then you guys will go second, okay? Okay, yes, you guys will go first. So, hello. I feel like this is the Moses thing. Like, it's like a debate. We'll do that in semester too. It just gets fun.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And I'll start the time when you guys start talking.
Okay, so we kind of started off, and we just went through and kind of talked about the common interests and stuff that we had. So for the top values, we had honesty, understanding, independent, empathetic, vision, and open-minded.
And so then we used our values and then kind of talked about like our strengths and weaknesses, and we really realized that like some of our strengths are like somebody else's weaknesses, and somebody else's weaknesses are somebody else's strengths. And so some of the ones that we talked about was just like organized, having connections. Sometimes if you're too driven on like your own thought, then it might lead to like you being a little bit more stubborn. Like you think you're listening to everybody, but sometimes you're not as open-minded as you think you are. And then also like the delivery of your honesty, because sometimes if you get really passionate about something, you may say things that you may word vomit. and you probably shouldn't. And so just kind of playing off everybody else's strengths and weaknesses. And then the way we see ourselves like in a leadership role right now, we all kind of talked about how it was hard because of COVID to like really be a leader on campus. And so a lot of us see ourselves more so a leader in like a friend group or like a family setting because those are people you see every day or like you talk to every day. Yeah.
And so then we started talking about drift and clarity, and we all kind of agreed that drift is like, it's something bad that we don't want to be a part of, but it's also good to like recognize like what it is, that way we have like going into like clarity to know that like, hey, like self-assessing and stuff, and be like, oh, this is bad, but I see that like I don't want to be in it anymore, so you can like work on going back and getting into the zone for clarity.
And then our third third concept, what we chose values. And I actually found this little quote in the book, and it says, you can gain greater understanding and mastery of your leadership potential and practice with systematic self-assessment. And so that kind of goes back on to drifting clarity, like, like Julie said, it's not a great thing, but, it's good to know about so you can recognize when you're in it and you can remember that for the future. And also recognize clarity with your self-assessment because, everyone has something to work on. And then just looking back to our values, your values make you who you are, and it determines who you are as a leader, and that really is going to determine who wants to follow you and who won't. So, yeah.
And we decided that the most important lesson was like understanding your strengths and your values and how that can put you in a leadership role that's going to be most beneficial to yourself, so you can like avoid drift, and also to the people you're leading, so you can utilize what you're best at to help them reach their potential.
Yeah, I think like it's one thing to like recognize your values and your strengths and your weaknesses, but being able to pull your audience's strengths and weaknesses together for a common goal, that's the hard part, and that's where it takes a special kind of person to take something to do.
And we have a question. We want to know what you guys learned from our presentation, or like what key points you took from our presentation.
I think it was interesting, like what stood out to me was how she said that some people's strengths are other people's weaknesses and vice versa. Like, I think that's an important thing to remember. Like, we all have these different characteristics, but just because like something is your strength doesn't mean someone else doesn't struggle with it, or just because someone else struggles with it doesn't mean you can't succeed at it. So I like that viewpoint.
And to kind of like piggyback off of that, that's what makes a really good team is like sometimes like I might look at you and think like, wow, well you can't do this, so maybe I don't want to be on the same team with you, but what I actually need to realize is like that's why I would want to be on the team with you, is because maybe you can pick up in an area that I'm lacking.
Good job. Great job, ladies. Can I give them a round of applause?
Ladies 1 and ladies 2. I will start the time when you guys start chatting.
So we really talked about the big thing was like drift and how we're all feeling it and how we've been feeling it, or maybe some of us haven't yet. So like some of the seniors in our group said like it's the senioritis type of the drift that they're experiencing right now. As for me and Devin, like we felt it a lot last semester, just the little fish in a really big pond thing. And so we've decided that drift is inevitable. It's going to happen to you at some point, whether it's like past college, whether it's fresh out of high school. It's going to happen, and it's relevant. Like maybe you haven't experienced it yet, but people are, and it's a real thing. Like it can be compared to like mental health. Like if you feel drift, you might feel some of the similar things that you're going to feel when you're having depression and anxiety and stuff like that. But once you're out of it and you find clarity, you get to realign and you get to I have to read my handwriting. Like once you get a little bit, you can see the whole big picture. And so like what Mackenzie said was that when you get in your car in the morning and you have a frosted over windshield, it starts to get heat and it starts to melt. And once it starts to melt, it doesn't take long. So that's kind of how like we find clarity is like once we start to find clarity, it doesn't take a long time for us to see the big picture. And that really resonated with me because I think, like, I've started to see the big picture, and so now it's all coming together. And as for values,
so we all kind of talked about how we have different things that play into our day-to-day lives, whether that goes from the differences in our majors or our interests or whatever. But at the same time, like, for the most part, we're all going to have the same, like, core things that we care about, as far as, like, generally being a good person might be kind of high on your list. But just going back and realizing that every day is kind of a chance to factory reset, and no matter how good or bad your day was yesterday, that's not going to affect today if you don't let it. Sure.
And then like we talked about how like some of the lessons, like she said, like drift is kind of something that you can't really avoid. Like we just feel like everyone's gonna have to go through it. And like she said, some of us haven't yet, and some of us are currently in it, and some of us have. And so we talked about how like one of the lessons is like you just need to like keep pushing forward. And like this quote right here, on page 3, it talked about the challenges today, and it says, "But our sense is that leaders today are finding the road a bit tougher to navigate than leaders did in the past." And we thought that was really important to remember. Like, you just have to keep pushing forward, and kind of like Bailey said, like life will just fall into place. Like whether you like know it or not, you just have to kind of like trust the process and stuff.
And a lot of times too, in order for there to be clarity in your life, you have to kind of go through that drift. So like, for instance, if you're under challenged or you're skeptical of whatever life is throwing at you, in order for you to come to like a common, clear goal, you're like in that season of drift. So you like kind of the progression of like drift to clarity is kind of what we talked about as well.
Right. Very good.
So clarity doesn't happen without drift. And even if you are experiencing drift, like, you're going to get out, so don't stop searching for what ignites your passion and what you want to do. And progress is progress. Even if you take a step back, you can still look at that, and as long as you reflect on that and say, okay, I don't want to take that step again, like, you're still making progress. You can take 2 steps forward and 1 step back and another to the side, and you're still making progress as long as you reflect on that.
Absolutely. Good job, y'all. Y'all, was that kind of the end? Sorry. Sure. So I kind of want to bounce that same question back, because you guys asked that question, and what did y'all take away from them? Let's try it reverse. What did y'all kind of take away from their presentation?
I think the concept of drift is inevitable was really interesting to me, just because like the whole time we've been learning about it, I've been thinking of like, okay, how can I avoid getting into this situation? But I mean, I think you're right. I think it is inevitable, and it's something you have to like learn from and grow from. So.
I really liked the car windshield analogy.
Me too.
That makes you really hopeful, because when you actually do start thinking about it, like anytime you've experienced a time where you're just kind of drifting in the wind, and then like it doesn't take much to ignite that, but once it's ignited, then you go on a pretty good run of getting stuff done, knowing why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, stuff like that. So I don't know. That's a really good like thing to keep you hopeful. Is that you just gotta find it. Like once you find your spark, then you're gonna be good.
Right.
I like to think of it as a math problem, like drift plus clarity equals growth.
Oh, yeah. And growth is uncomfortable sometimes, but it's like so necessary. And I like, too, what you guys said about igniting. What did you say? It was really, you put it so eloquently.
Don't stop searching for what ignites your passion.
Yeah, I think that's really good, because it's easy to be discouraged or distracted or feel as though because you're not exactly where you want to be, that, you know, it's no real reason to kind of keep going because you've wasted time or all those things, or, man, I messed this up. I don't want to mess something else up. But I think as long as, you know, you're here, there's a purpose for you to be here. And sometimes, like we talked about before, like people, or maybe that was in another class, but talking about people are always watching you, and that you're here to encourage other people on whatever journey that is that you decide to pursue. And being self-reflective, like you said, a systematic self-assessment, really taking that time to really evaluate yourself, evaluate your vision, evaluate your values, evaluate why you're in drift. Why do you feel lost? Like, a lot of times if you figure out the why behind anything that has you off track, you'll be able to get back on track, because you can tackle that why.
I would also say, like, part of that, that like flame that is your passion, like, it is really easy to extinguish that sometimes, but that's not to say that the same thing that first ignited that, or the first thing that was your passion that kept that burning, isn't going to come back and isn't going to be the same thing. So, like, I guess I was kind of considering, I'm an AGLE major, I've always had a passion for teaching, but at one time, like, that flame was kind of extinguished, and I was like, wow, do I really want to be here? But I just kept pushing through it, and I really realized, yes, this is where I want to be. So just because it does, get blown out for a period of time doesn't mean that the same thing that first started that isn't going to come back up.
Absolutely. Be okay with being where you are, but be okay with growing and continuously growing through life. I think it doesn't stop. It doesn't matter when you get 40, 50, you're still going to be growing. Hopefully, that's the goal, because when people get stagnant, that's when it's hard to be around people. So I appreciate y'all being flexible at class today and the activity. I hope that this kind of drilled in some of these concepts for you all, especially as you prepare for your essays that you'll be doing. It's kind of this similar exercise when you interview the person you select for your essays, and kind of have that what I took away. We kind of just walk through that. So I hope that's helpful. If we could push the chairs back, as you guys are pushing the chairs back, I'm going to make a couple announcements as far as things to think about real quick for next class. Real quick. But great job. Great job. I thought y'all did a really good job. So for class next Tuesday, very important. We're going to start, we're going to assign our small group presentations. It's very important that you're here, because those presentations are due, I don't have the date in front of me, but it's really in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be up on us pretty fast. So you want to make sure you're here. Tell any friends that you know are not here, any classmates that you know are not here, tell them so they can be here, because they're going to be assigned either way, and it's a group project. So collectively, you need to work together and make sure everybody's accountable. I'll talk a little bit more about that on how we'll do that, still social distance and all that, on Tuesday. Also, Chapter 2 quiz is due on Tuesday before class. So make sure that you guys complete that. Again, work on those essays. Your draft is going to be due next Thursday. Optional draft, and then that following Tuesday your essays due. So just make sure you're keeping up to date on all of those deadlines coming up, and just let me know if you have any questions. I'll put up the Do Good challenge for writing the notes to the health services on Canvas. I also put another extra credit opportunity up on Canvas. You guys will see it just literally says extra credit opportunities, and then it's a discussion question about drift and clarity. It's almost like a case, mini tiny case study for you guys to think through. It's optional, but it is an extra credit opportunity for you guys to get on there and discuss. I believe the due date for that is February 10th, but you guys can look at that as well. So make sure you guys turn in all your worksheets with your name on it and who you interviewed on there. To me, you don't have to turn in the presentation sheet, but at least the sheet the sheet that you interviewed your partner with. Turn that in. That's how I'll give you guys credit for today. Are there any questions? Read Chapter 2. Chapter 2 quiz is due, and we'll talk a little bit about Chapter 2 on Tuesday. Okay? Great job today. Y'all have a good weekend.